Today I wanted to talk a little bit, this will be our Kata Tip, if you will. It's a good day, I think, to do it. Yesterday we talked about stances and how stances are transitional, transient, transitory, methodology for how the kata can tell us how our body is moving in relation to our opponent and that sort of thing. And not stance for the sake of stance and then move to the next stance and for the sake of that stance, but that the stance facilitates you doing something that creates a tactical advantage vis-a-vis or against your opponent. Today I wanted to bring that up to our hands and talk a little bit about in our kata how we might think about our hands. I like to think of kata and the way we teach kata, the basic way we teach kata is to break down or to break apart movement, fluid movement. So in order to teach a person how to break down something that is fluid, we have to break it down in time and space. In other words, we have to freeze frame movement, and it normally sounds something like ich, ni, and we stop here and then we move to the next movement. And sometimes we can develop a tendency as we do this over and over and over to begin to think of our kata as moving from one posture or pose to the next posture or pose, or from this being the proper posture or technique, this being the technique, and then moving to another technique and this being the technique. And that often limits the way we view that technique in application. So what I'd like to offer you, just something to think about as you do your kata, whatever kata it is, whatever style it is, whatever it is to think about the application of the technique that might happen between the posture where we artificially kind of freeze frame this fluid movement here, that maybe the technique is occurring somewhere between here and here. And so for a shitoke, for example, if I'm going from here to here, the technique actually occurs somewhere in this range, somewhere in here, or maybe even from here as we pass through that to the next technique, but that the technique might occur somewhere in between. And sometimes we might shortchange ourselves by losing the fact that there's maybe a cover, that in between here and here I have a covering action that covers lower body, upper body. Okay, I have then a this circular action where I potentially have a technique in here, and then while I stop here in the kata, in application there might be a continuation to the next technique. Okay, so as we think about combining what we talked about with our stances, the kata tip talking about the stances and how we transition with our stances, and then we combine that with thinking about how our hands work and how that is applied, then we have to connect the two, and that's where kata, I think, really helps, is we connect these things biomechanically, our lower body and our upper body, so that we can actually begin to apply the techniques in a way that, again, keeps us balanced, keeps us powerful, and keeps us effective. Okay, so that's the kata tip for the day. And look, if you read this, shoot a quick note to me or something like that. Let me know what you think. Did it feel good as you're doing the workout today? Maybe think about it. You might mess it up a little bit. You might get a little twisted as you do your kata, but that's okay. That's what we're here to do, is learn.